Welcome to another episode of The Corner Booth, the official podcast of restaurantowner.com. Today, the restaurant industry is changing faster than ever. Learn from successful independent restaurant operators and other industry leaders as they share best practices that will help you engage your team, delight your guests, and grow your business.
And welcome, everyone, to another episode of Corner Booth. I'm Chris Tripoli with restaurantowner.com. Today, we're going to be talking about a new hot concept operating and ready and poised for growth. It's because I have Otto Othman and his partner, Adrian Sanchez, Pincho Burger and Kebab. Did I get that right? Am I pronouncing the name right, guys?
Yeah, so it's Pincho, and then the burgers, the burgers and kebabs is sort of just like our descriptor, but the brand is just Pincho. Yeah.
Well, Adrian, Otto, thank you so much for taking some time and joining us here on Corner Booth. Welcome. Before we jump into the exciting concept, we want to know about the concept, the menu, the customers, etc. But first, why don't we share with our listeners a little bit about you guys? What was your interest in the industry? How did you get started? And how did you meet to get this going?
For sure. Well, thank you, Chris, for having me and Adrian. We're very excited to share our story. I'll sort of kick off the story of Pincho first, because then we'll go into how we met Adrian, because I thought it was like a really cool, serendipitous moment. So I was born and raised in Brazil, and to Middle Eastern parents, and lived in Brazil most of my life. And then I moved to Miami right when I was 16 years old. And when I first moved here, my mom invited some of my friends, and they came to a house, and she cooked, normally what she would cook for us. And my friends fell in love with my family's kebab recipe, right? It's pincho is the Spanish word for skewer. So that's where the word pincho comes from. We call it kebab because a lot of folks, understand kebabs really, really quickly. But pincho is a Latin skewer, grilled skewer. That's what it is. Anyway, so they called me like a week later, and he goes, "Hey man, is it cool if your mom can share her pincho recipe with us?" And I'm like, "Well, I know she'll share the recipe, but she can help you guys out." And they're like, "No, look, we want to go to a supermarket and buy like 2 pounds of steak and have your mom just chop it up and season it." And I'm like, "And grill it?" They're like, "No, we just want to grill it at our house, at our tailgate party," I think it was. And I was like, "Oh man, that's really nice." And I called my mom. My mom was honored, and that became a thing. So, I was 16 at the time, still young, so wanted to go to college and do my thing. And man, fast forward many years later, me and my co-founder at the time, Nadal, we were at 4th of July barbecue, hanging out, and he was unhappy with his day-to-day career. And he goes, "Man, I just want to do something different." And I pitched him, "Hey, we should open a restaurant selling my mom's pincho recipe, right? Which is, a family recipe." And we sort of went for it, right? I've always wanted, that was a passion of mine. I wanted to sell my mom's recipe. I knew it was going to blow up. So Nidal goes to me, "Well, what's going to be the concept?" And I told him, Five Guys was popular at the time. This is 15 years ago, Chris, which is...
Yeah, of course.
After tomorrow is actually our 15-year anniversary, which is phenomenal. So I told him, we'll do this Latin-inspired fast casual, selling the foods that you find in the streets of South America, because that's where I grew up. I mean, it's burgers, hot dogs, and pinchos. Those are the foods you find in the streets of South America. And we went for it. No experience, no know-how, no anything. We just knew business because we grew up working with our family, so we knew how to run retail shops. That's all we do. And then fast forward, we've opened a restaurant, and which is a whole other deal. But fast forward about a year into the thing, we met Adrian. And I'll let Adrian sort of take this on. He met Nadal first at a food event because he had a food truck.
Yeah. I'll take over this part. I mean, as far as I go, like, cooking growing up was always a hobby for me. Something I learned from my mom and my grandparents, watching them. And then, growing up in a Cuban family, the matriarchs always wanted to control the cooking. So I was like, okay, you guys handle the Cuban stuff. I'll go do everything else. So I started kind of researching other cuisines and everything. I would throw tailgates with my friends and like theme tailgate parties. But essentially, my plan was always to retire from corporate America and then open a small little restaurant of my own. Fate wouldn't have that. I ended up leaving corporate America, and I said, let me food trucks were a craze at the time. and I went in with some friends into the food truck industry, with food truck called the Flying Saucer, and that's actually where I came to meet Nadal, who at that time Pincho had also purchased a food truck and started kind of going around trying to figure out kind of like marketing, right, for the restaurant to see where would they open the next location, get the word out about the locations and everything. And we actually ended up becoming very good friends through the industry. I would visit the restaurant, kind of like throw back ideas back and forth about menu items and different things going on. And a year later, I would end up shutting down the food truck with my friends and joining the Pincho family.
Oh, wow. Okay. So now when you joined, that was, 1 year after this event where you met and you left Flying Saucer. At that time, how many units had there been, Otto? The one, okay.
One location, yeah.
You
There
got
was
it. And
still
this one
one. I was
location was in Miami?
Yeah, we had one location in Westchester, Florida. It's Miami. It's a beautiful town, a little bit southwest, I would like to say. Yeah, we lived up slightly north. We're kids from the city, but another beautiful city called Hialeah, and me and Adrian the dog were from there. But we couldn't really get this. We couldn't find a spot where we lived that we could afford to open
Sure.
Pincho in. We needed a second generation restaurant, and Hialeah, as crazy as Hialeah is, businesses do extremely well there. So it was very
Mhm.
hard to find somebody that was shutting down. So we ended up finding one on Bird Road. So we opened that one with very little money. We had $77,000 in the dream. That's the budget for Pincho number one, and a loan from one of our uncles. God bless him. He charged us a ton of interest on that. I remember. So yeah, we opened up first one, and that's when we met Adrian. And we pitched Adrian to come on board, and we told him, "Look, come on board, join us as a partner, and help us open store number two." I remember
Got it.
it was
Well,
like,
so store number one, though, before we leave that one, I got it. It's
yeah,
tough. Every listener's probably nodding.
oh
You
my
you
God.
take very little money, you get friends and family together, you got a loan from an uncle, boom, boom, you're in business. But how was it doing? Can you describe like how large, how many seats did you have?
Ah,
Is this a counter service with inside, outside seating? What was
ab- absolutely. This was a hole in the wall, about 1,000 square feet, 1,100 square feet in Bird Road. They had 29 seats, I think, at the time, with 30 seats at a time. Man, Chris, first year, for the listeners out there, we did 200 grand in sales. That
Yeah.
that to us was amazing. Ignorance is bliss. I was like, seriously, we did not know that it was good or bad. We're like, okay,
Right.
we're doing about, I think it was like less than 10 grand a week, whatever the math was. And second year we doubled, and we were like, okay, but second year we almost closed because it was so hard. And the second year, that's when we're like, man, this is really difficult. But then third year was our break. Third year, we almost hit $1 million in sales. So that's when we're like, okay, we got a business, because it was what made it really hard. It was like a really crappy real estate site. We didn't know,
Mhm.
for us, it was, rent how much? The rent was like $3,500 or something like that. So we took on the space. And it wasn't like today, but you know this, Chris. Back then, social media
Yeah.
wasn't like a thing. There was Facebook, but nothing would go viral. Like you would only shown your contact to your friends. That's how
Yeah.
social media was. So you needed to have friends, because if you posted something, strangers wouldn't see it. No, you had to go and find these followers. So it was very
So
hard to market.
and when was this? What is the time frame for this?
2010, yeah, 2010,
Oh, 2011. We're end of 2010, really. So
November
like,
2010.
yeah.
So that's unit number one. I'm sure a
Mhm.
lot of the listeners can identify with this. You're right. It's what we call, typically we open the first unit by what we call the combo platter. A little bit of money here, a little bit of loan there, a couple borrowed equipment here. You just put it all together. Building from year one to year two, we understand year three, things are finally moving good for you. Revenue's looking good. So is that when you went to work on unit two?
Well, it
Yeah.
was actually before then.
Oh,
So it hit that, like I was said earlier, ignorance is bliss, right? So even with the struggles that we had in year two, we already signed a lease for the second unit, and luckily it took us about a year to get the second one open. which is great because it gave us time to actually like sit down, and we started working on everything, training documents,
Yeah.
recipes, and putting kind of like setting us up to be able to open that second store and manage two
Ah,
locations.
man, those good old days, huh? I think the story goes. I think it's the same story for everybody. You have
Pretty much. And
have
and
an
that's when you first came across the website,
Yeah,
restaurantowner.com for
yeah, we
beginning.
started we would use restaurantowner.com and download the different systems, procedures, and try to apply. Why reinvent the wheel, right? If I can go out there and find, a opening checklist, closing checklist template, and all I have to do is go and edit it, dude, our entire books were built on restaurantowner.com.
Wonderful. Well, yes,
Yeah,
yes, that's wonderful. Happy to hear, but you're
yeah,
right. People do that. So that means unit 2 gets to open up a little bit more structured than number 1.
yeah.
You're
Oh,
better
yeah.
prepared, staff's trained. And so when was that now? What year are we in when this one opens?
We're in mid 2013, August 2013 was when, or September 2013 was when we got the second one open.
Yeah. That one
O-
opened with a bang. Oh, that
Opened up with a bang. Yeah.
That was a
Wow.
better real estate. That one's already doing over $1 million. We're like, okay, we got a concept. That's when so then Chris, I sat with my wife and I said, look, I'm going to quit my career because I hadn't quit my career yet. I was still working full time. I was an advertising exec. My background's in advertising. I was doing big brand campaigns for Chrysler, Fiat, Twix, M&Ms, you name it. We worked for a big global ad agency. So I said, okay, I'm going to quit my career and go help Nadal and Adrian and Nazar at the time. And the rest is history. And that's when we went from 2013, we opened Coral Gables, and we've raised a little bit of money for more friends and family rounds for some joint ventures. And I think from 2014, 2015 to like 2018, we've opened 5 locations. I think it was back to back. And like in 3 years time, we opened 4 or 5 locations,
Mhm.
and they all did exponentially better than the first one. And that's when we knew we had a concept, Chris.
I think so.
Yeah.
So that's the proof of concept.
Yep.
The first one sort of tests the idea, struggled, gets going. Second one is when we become organized, and then boom, you start expanding and proved yourself. Hey, yeah, you've got some shelf life here. This concept's got legs.
Yep.
Excellent steps. Starting, organizing, proof of concept. Now we've got expansion. And these 5 more units, they opened quickly, all in Florida.
Yeah, all in Florida. We didn't leave Florida. We stuck close to home on purpose.
Well, sure.
Yeah,
No,
we
and
I mean,
again, it makes sense not to go
yeah,
crazy. I mean, expansion is difficult enough, but geographically, if you can keep it to where, it works from a support position,
right.
supervision, purveyor relationships, that makes great sense. Good for you.
Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, it was very exciting. We did franchise early on, and that was one of the mechanisms that got us to open, all of those locations from a financing standpoint.
Mhm.
But right around 2021, which is, a few years later after COVID, I was able to partner up with Savory Fund, and Savory Fund's out of Salt Lake City, and
Mhm.
we purchased all of our restaurants back. So we went to our franchisees and we told them, thank you very much. We love you guys. We appreciate you. But we would love to get our company, make it all company owned, and sort of control our destiny a little bit more. And today we're 14 units.
So we bought back the franchises and continued growth.
Yep.
And
Correct.
now you've got, what did you say, 14 operating units now?
14 operating units. And from those 14, we have 2 licenses. Like these are non-traditional, your typical non-traditional locations. But the rest is all company owned units.
Excellent. So you mentioned Savory. Savory's a great group, and they are financial partners.
Yep.
And they also typically, when they buy in, can add some additional support mechanisms, whether it's financial planning, strategic growth, construction management, some type of admin, because they have done that, I think, with other, brands that we're aware of. So how's the working relationship with them there? Are they doing some of that with you now?
Yeah, I mean, they're our business partners, and not we've known them for 4 years now, which is crazy. Time flies.
Yes.
I honestly, I think Savory Fund has built something incredibly special. I think they are the best growth equity fund in the country right now. I don't think anybody comes close to them, primarily because of what you said. every founder and me and Adrian feel the same way about this. Like, what we need is help. It's not necessarily just money, right? Because you want to avoid mistakes of others. So what do founders usually do? You go and you find advisors, you create a board of advisor, you along the way you meet some really special people. And we met, Jim Mises from Blaze Pizza joined us when we were 4 or 5 units. Andy Howard, former CMO of Wingstop and now CEO of Huey Magoo's Chicken Tenders. He wrote us the first check early on. So along the way, we met incredible humans that really made us better operators, because in this game there's no school, Chris. There's no like restaurant college degree. It's you learn by making mistakes and you learn by going to work every day. So when it came time to Savory, it was a big decision for us because we're like, okay, if we're gonna get on with these guys, it is a majority partner. It's not a minority deal. We said we want to control our destiny a bit more. Do we trust these guys? And they've been phenomenal, man. They're just great human beings. The support that we get from them is fantastic. It's unmatched. Like, there's no way, like, we get overnight, we get a VP of real estate, a VP of finance, a VP of construction, a VP of training and development. All of these, I call them the Avengers. It's like 9 of them. So overnight, you feel extremely like you have a backbone of support. So it gives us a lot of flexibility to make bigger bets now, because I'm like, okay, cool. Like, maybe we should go open up Houston. Maybe we should go do this. Without them, I'll be like, I don't know if we're ready to do all of that.
Sure.
It gives you a boost of concept. But yeah, they're phenomenal, great partners.
Well,
one thing that they add to.
Go ahead, Adrian.
Sorry,
Go ahead.
just to touch, one thing that they add to it is, I mean, as an owner of a restaurant, you end up doing everything yourself, especially in the early growth, right? You become the director of construction. You're the project manager. You're the trainer. You create the catering department. You're the events department. You're everything, basically. You're finance, et cetera, et cetera. So, coming into it with them, and all of a sudden now you as an owner get to focus on what you were best at, or the 1 or 2 items instead of the 5 items, right?
Right.
It's like words can't describe like how easy that makes it, I guess.
Yeah, I was here smiling because I remember 2014, Adrian was director of culinary, possibly a GM of a restaurant, and he was our director of construction. We had 3 restaurants, and I was finance, marketing, and fun and raising funds and accounting.
Yes,
It was like
exactly.
it's
Exactly. So you're right. If you can build that advisory team, wear fewer hats, not only are getting things done better, but you're also being able to balance a little bit more of your time on what it is you do well. So now what I'd love to do is take a few moments and let's bring the conversation back to concept and operations. Now, after this, can we describe a little bit about how do we operate, hours of operation? Is this a breakfast, lunch, and dinner, or is it just strictly lunch and dinner? Do we have a lot of third-party delivery? Is there catering, curbside? Give us some of that now.
Yeah, I'll touch on the mechanics. I'll let Adrian get on the menu and what we're all about. But we're a fast casual, an upscale fast casual brand. I like to call it, not a bit closer to what a casual dining would feel like in terms of experience. But yeah, we're open from 11 in the morning till 10 at night. Monday through Sunday. We operate both markets. Some of our restaurants on the weekend close at 11 o'clock at night, which is, we're probably even pushing the envelope there a bit more and trying to maybe go to midnight, because we're seeing really strong sales at night for Pincho. The music changes, a little bit of a different vibe. Like, it's a cool, young, hip Miami brand that's not in Houston. So it's very fun, very, very relevant brand today, even though we're 15 years old. The menu is simple. I'll let Adrian touch a bit on who we are and what Pincho stands for. Go, Adrian.
So, I mean, Pincho, we're a Latin-inspired burgers and bowls brand is what we are, basically. A lot of our inspiration comes from, as Otto pointed to earlier, it's kind of like those South American flavors from, Colombia, Venezuela, the Caribbean, Brazil, all different parts of Central South America and the Caribbean, essentially. And what we like to do is we kind of like take those flavors and fuse them together and put them on vessels that everybody's used to, burgers. It's an American classic, right? But
Huh?
most people is American cheese, onions, mustard, grilled onions, something like that. And that's like your simple go-to. We kind of like take it to the next level and start adding like different flavors like fried cheese, guava, ketchup, sweet plantains, like so different things kind of like to take that vessel and just expand on it and like create new flavors that you've never tasted before. But it's an item that you're very familiar with.
Well, I'm getting hungry. How about a drink program? Specialty drinks? Is there beer and wine involved, or we don't get into that?
Yeah.
We've been previously with beer and wine, and we're actually kind of in this stage right now where we want to do a switch and we want to kind of go back from a large beer program and kind of just tone it down a little bit, maybe offer like one or two beers, but maybe bring milkshakes forward, something a little more family friendly and something that
Yeah.
the kids love.
Yeah, after COVID, Chris, our entire business has changed, and I'm sure a lot of people relate to that. We're we're 70% now takeout. It's crazy, right? We used to be 30% takeout, 70% dine-in, and now it's sort of flipped the other way around. A lot of from that 70%, I would like to say about 30 to 35% is third party. Our partners, literally business partners, Uber Eats and DoorDash get a big chunk of our
Mhm.
sales today. But yeah, but with that change, we've seen the beer sales sort of just go down. Obviously,
Sure.
with less people in store, the less beer you sell, and we're trying to figure out the next step for our beverage program would be. A lot of people are digging milkshakes. We're testing them in Texas. It's just a natural fit for a burger joint, for lack of a better term. But we're sort of dabbling into new things. We're very interested in these new. It's called premium blend, which is like these wine based tequilas and vodkas and more spirit. They're not so heavy. Even frozen. We've tried. Me and Adrian looked at frozen margaritas and frozen mojitos. Something that's a bit of a more Miami, not so much Mexican. But yeah, people want more, but people also are drinking less. So it's like a very fine balance for not to find the right program.
Well, you hit a really big item, and that is a trend. First off, I just think that's incredible, the switch from being 70/30 dine-in to 30/70 dine-in. You're right, that does create a tremendous amount of changes. If people are liking the concept, but they're demanding the convenience, you gotta do the third party, you gotta do the car side. But it means that sitting around, enjoying the vibe and having, say, like a first or a second cocktail or a specialty beer is out the window. So yes, we've heard that before with other concepts doing interesting non-alcoholic things. Sure, I think you'll have good luck with specialty milkshakes and interesting pre-made beverages. Younger people are liking a little bit more of that kind of thing. So if it is sort of an infused vodka, tequila, fruit, something, you might have
Right.
better luck with that. So yeah, I see that. This also means that you can grow with smaller footprints. If
Absolutely.
yeah, so that might help because isn't part of the challenge with growth, I guess, trying to find not just locations that work for you, but also can work within a budget because it seems like I don't know. I want you to tell me what you're finding, but it seems like landlords haven't gotten the message that it's a difficult market, and they don't seem to understand that, and restaurants seem to be paying the price. Is that what you're finding?
Absolutely. But think about it. When COVID hit and every business got PPP, that was a massive real estate bailout. Think about it. Every landlord got paid. That's what happened. And so rents never had net and rents were never affected. I remember trying to talk to our landlords back then, like, give me 1 month, and
Yes.
it was a big no. And now in Miami, it's you can't find anything less than $65 a foot. That's like minimum. I just looked at a spot the other day. It's 2,000 square feet. You're looking at $18,000 a month. This is in the suburbs, man. This is not even in downtown. This is in the suburbs of Miami. So I cannot, I was talking to Savory about this not too long ago. I was like, we cannot open restaurants that are 2,500 square feet anymore. It just doesn't make sense just because of that mix, right? That P mix alone is already telling that story. But also from a rent standpoint, it just doesn't make sense. So we want to always be in the $10,000 range, $11,000 range max. We don't want to end up paying 17 and 18. Now, granted, it's not about the actual value; it's about the revenue that you can make out of those locations. But if you're purely talking about size, I think 1,700, 1,800 are perfect sizes for Pincho going forward.
Okay, that makes good sense.
Yeah.
I mean, can you imagine that we're actually at a time where we're saying, our rents need to be more like $10,000 to $11,000 a month, and that's reasonable.
That's great.
That's dirt
It
cheap,
needs to be
and
6
we can't
and
find
5.
them.
Yeah, it needs to be 6 and 5, man. I remember
Yeah.
this when we opened Coral Gables. Remember we were just thinking the story. I think Adrian, you were part of the lease negotiations back then. We found a spot in the Gables. It was a hidden corner, but we that's how we built the brand, very scrappy. And that back then was like $3,800, $4,000 around there, 3,800 to 4,000. And that was a big jump from the first one, which was 3,000, I think it changed. Now that's unheard of. I mean, if you find something for $6,000, $7,000 a month in Miami, is because you're buying somebody else's lease and it's a very small unit and it's not main and main.
Yeah,
But yeah,
that's true. Well, let's switch maybe from occupancy costs and talk to other challenges that you're facing. Once you say get a good site and once you are, open and operating, wha what are the other things, current industry challenges as we go into 2026 that you're concerned with? Is it still continued labor shortage? Is it introducing the technology? Or is it problems with cost of goods? What are we focusing on as an operator now?
oh man, oof, I think 2025 was the worst year for any operator, even after COVID. I mean, we had
Yeah.
COVID, which was a disaster, and then we all have PTSD of those days. But thankfully, we're healthy. That's what matters. I think then we had labor, we had food costs. Now this year was a little bit of everything. I think there's a lot of pressure on food costs for us right now. We're very protein heavy brand. So, we just found out that there's a shortage of cattle and that price is not going to go down anytime soon. So that's one issue that we have. Second issue, man, it's overnight, every fast casual, every restaurant, we've had to convert into a media company. The algorithms are not the same. Getting new customers is not as easy as it used to be. You used to go to social media and just post an image of your food and say, "Hey guys, we're open today," and you get all this engagement. Now you have to sort of be competing for attention because it's the new algorithm on Facebook. It's on Instagram. It's great, but it isn't. But because it knows what good work versus bad work is. So, in the first 3 seconds of a video, if you're not pulling out great hooks, you're not getting a lot of attention. And shifting a lot of our budgets now to influencer marketing, which is something that we've done in the past, but we've never really focused. So it's been a little bit of everything, but really, I think just the economy as a whole right now is not the strongest. We've seen a lot of people pull back on spending. Miami housing, Chris, people don't think about that stuff, but when when people's rents, like this happened to our own team, right? Team members come in and say, my rent just went up $700 overnight, $800 overnight. That's disposable income that's not going to restaurants anymore. That's going to landlords. So that family that all of a sudden has to pay $700, $800 more a month, that's huge, man. So you're seeing a lot of that. Thankfully for us, the brand is still positive over last year in terms of sales because we have a lot of love locally and we've reacted quickly. But we're not trying to take on price. So we're getting killed on food costs sometimes. And I'll let Adrian talk about food costs a bit, but
Yeah,
that's the challenge.
because I think you're right. It is tough. Maybe Adrian, you can give us your view on that, but I've heard that. I mean, if cost of goods are our number one concern, well, the answer can't always be let's just go price, price, price. When we've heard what Otto just described, and that is people have a tight situation here. They're they're looking for something that's better. Okay, we've established that. People are definitely demanding convenience. You've pretty well established that too.
Yeah.
But they don't have the dollars to be out all the time. Ouch. So how are you reacting?
Oof, I mean, very difficult, as you said. Like with food costs, everything from eggs going from 7 cents a pop to $1 a pop. I think it was at the beginning of this year. And now beef, like you said, I've spoken to the to the companies, to the slaughterhouse, everybody. It's like we don't have enough cattle and grass, and it's going to take a year or two to rebuild the herd. So it's like we're not looking at good numbers until 2027. So trying to find, I guess, alternative proteins, from what we have, like chicken steak, chicken beef, shrimp. Trying to find alternative items, like maybe getting into pork, or bringing on. We brought on a different kind of chicken. So before we carried only chicken breast. So we said, let's bring on chicken thigh, and we created a whole new product with that chicken thigh. People have been very receptive to it. It holds very well. So it's great for the operation. And then it gives us another stream, basically, to create different incentives off of, for guests, right? So all of a sudden we have a better margin product that we can offer a BOGO, and it's not going to affect the bottom line as much as you would with a steak or with beef or anything like that. So
Right. And what you were saying, you can't just take on price all the time, right? But then customers don't understand it, and it's hard to explain it, right? So take our Pincho burger, for example. Prior to COVID, we were at $8.29 for a Pincho burger. That's our classic, our namesake burger. Today's $8.99. So if you think about it, it's not a crazy increase, right? It went from $8.29 to $8.99. But then our, minimum wage went from, we were in the tens now to 15 almost, right? So we're paying employees way more than we were paying. And our cost on food has gone up over 50%, over
I
the last
think
5 years.
yes. Yeah.
So, and
And did you say that basic popular burger, the Pincho burger, is $8.99 now?
$8.99 now, right?
You see, that sounds like a very reasonable counter service price when I'm seeing that wrapped in paper drive-through windows at the fast food restaurants now.
Exactly right. Exactly right. And then you move that needle, and you have to be very thoughtful, right? Okay, if you can take on price on other items from a value perception, that's what we have done, right? So
Right.
on a specific chicken ball that was $9.99, now is $11.99. We've taken on price on other things where the value perception is not going to be affected, right? Because it's like, okay, cool, it's an extra $2, but everybody's selling bowls for $17 the other day. I met a founder today, he's selling a bowl for $18, and I thought that was crazy, but people are paying. So it all goes back to how you position yourself, how you position your brand, and the quality of your food, and are you being loud about that? Because you can take on price, but then people don't understand the love and the amount of effort that goes behind your food, and people just perceive you as expensive. But if they know that there's a lot of love and care behind the brand and what we stand for, and we communicate that clearly, most of the times people understand. So
I think you brought up a good point, and I think I agree with you. I think one thing that we did learn, and this sure does work in our favor
yeah,
post-COVID, is that we're getting a little bit of understanding from the customer, and that I think they've redefined value. Years ago, whenever we used the word value, it typically meant cheap, value meal, order the number 2, or even when you went to a full service restaurant, you opened up the menu, there was like the business lunch special. Basically, that meant the smaller portions put it together and you got a cheaper price. But what I'm seeing, and I'd love to hear your comments on this now, is that the customer seems to be redefining value as not so much cheap, but based on worth. Was
yeah.
this worth what I paid? Was this worth my time? Was this experience, worth it so that I would come back? And that means they might pay a couple bucks more if it's worth it. It isn't just, cheap.
Smiling because it literally happened to us, and Adrian probably is reading my mind right now. When we opened in Texas, that's exactly what happened. Texas market was very loud initially to make sure we heard that, hey, we love your food, but it's not worth the money that I'm paying. And we were like, this is what we did. I don't know if this is a classic mistake, but this is the mistake that we did. We said, okay, guys, we're going to go to Texas. Let's go in and let's maybe drop the price of our plates by $1 so that way we're really strong against our competitors. Our competitors are $16 a plate. We're going to go for $11 a plate. And people are going to love it. Boy, were we wrong. Because in Miami, grilled skewer is 4 ounces of protein. Texas, they were like, that's not enough for me. They said, my other competitor, they're charging $16, but guess what? They're giving you more protein. So the Texas consumer said, guys, charge me $2 more. I don't care. I want to be full. I want to eat the plate and I want enough food. So we went from $11 to $13.99, right? And now they get 2 grilled skewers. They're getting 6 ounces of protein. And from a food cost standpoint, we're still hitting the mark that we need to hit. And the customer exponentially happier. They're like, finally you gave me what I wanted. So yes, value now is not cheap. Value is I'm going to give you X amount of dollars. I want that to match what I feel this money deserves in terms of return.
Yes. No, I think you're right. And seeing Adrian, that gives culinary a better direction. You guys would much rather work with knowing that the customer is going to give me credit for taste, presentation, portion. So if I have to be $1 or $2 more, I get to do that. But now, they are discriminatory. Going back to your comment, Otto, that is true. They know better. We need them. They don't really need us. They're already eating somewhere else. So if they can see through there and they're not really happy with portion, presentation, and flavor, ouch. Yeah. So you guys seem to be doing a good job there. Now, we've mentioned Texas a few times. So let's go ahead and tell that story. When did your first unit open? Where is it? How is the growth through that state going to be in the future? How do you see it similar to what you've done in Florida? How will it be different, perhaps?
Yeah. For sure. I'll take on the ops age, and you can take on the culinary of the changes we've made. But man, after partnering up with Savory, we said, okay, let's open up another market. And because we wanted to plant the flag early in the game, so that way we can build up the brand and learn and iterate and figure out what needs to happen. Every brand, I think, there's always this concern. Does it have legs? Is this a regional brand? Is this a national brand? What can we do? So we said, let's go out there and give this a try. So we hired a company, and we did a white space analysis. We geofenced every single Pincho location in Miami, and we studied that consumer. There's 2 companies that do this. They're incredible. So if anybody's listening, there's one called Site Zeus, and there's one called Placer AI. They are really good companies that you can, hire to help you with real estate. And they came up with a psychograph of what our customer looks like. So essentially, they said, look, this is your customer in Miami. This is their spending habits. This is their age group. This is what they look like. This is their political affiliation. This is where they shop after Pincho. This is where they're coming before they go to Pincho, where they're coming from. It's insane. It's very scary, the amount of data that our phones send back to these companies. And then we landed with grabbing all that data, throwing it on the map, and then saying, okay, here where other people like them live in the U.S. So lo and behold, a lot of our customers, their lookalike audiences are LA, New York, Illinois, I think Chicago, and then Texas. So New York was intimidating for us to go to. California was very far.
Yeah.
And California is not easy to do business with either. And Texas was a very favorable state. And we sort of put 2 and 2 together because we always got franchise requests from Houston, always. Throughout the history of the brand, a lot of people that live in Houston come to Miami, maybe a lot of Venezuelans that live there. They work in the oil field industry. Yes. And we said, you know what, let's go. And man, we went. So, we've opened 4 units. Again, we were aggressive. Maybe slightly too aggressive and opened them a bit too fast. But man, it's been received extremely well. Our guest satisfaction scores are through the roof. We've just been recently named one of the best burgers in Houston by Houstonian magazine. So finally, it took us a year and a half, 2 years actually, but we made it, mama. So that was a good one. And man, we've been embraced by the community, which I think is everything that me and Adrian wanted to. We've recently moved there 3 months ago, 2.5 months ago, like relocated our work, sort of. We're there Monday through Saturday, sometimes Tuesday through Sunday. And just getting to know people, talking to customers, going around town, building up the love. We've hired a PR firm, which you've known with Kim. She's been, our quarterback. She's introduced us to so many So, and this is something that sell all the founders. If you're going to open up in a big city, you need a kick-ass PR group that knows the market well, because you don't know anybody there. You need somebody that you can trust that can introduce you to a lot of locals, and that's what we've done. And man, it's been amazing. We've learned a lot. We've iterated, made some changes to the menu,
Okay.
localized some of the flavors. In typical ignoramus Floridian Miami fashion, we opened without hot sauce. It's like no one no one really asks for hot sauce in our restaurants. Very little people do. And then in Texas, they're like, "Wait, what? You guys don't have hot sauce?" We're like, "No, we don't." People quickly told us, "If you don't get hot sauce, I'm not coming back here." And then another one that was really fun was iced tea. They were like, "There's no unsweetened iced tea here?" I was like, "No, there isn't." They're like, "Man, this is Texas. You better have iced tea." And then we're like, "Oh man, we better get iced tea." I had a review from a gentleman. He goes, "Love the brand, love the food. They don't have iced tea. If they don't get it, they'll close in 30 days.
Well, there's some great principles there that I think everybody, regardless of concept and
Right.
regardless of market that they're expanding into, can learn from. You
Yeah.
really hit the nail on the head when you said, even though you know your concept, when you're expanding, localize your marketing, learn from professionals who know that market. Wow, what a great lesson to pass on. Get professionals that know how to introduce you to that market and follow their direction. And then you talk about being active in the community, being able to be flexible. Can you imagine if you were a brand, a bigger, more established brand, and you were not allowing flexibility with things like drinks, specialty sauces, menu adjustments, different specials, changing portions, raising prices, all the things you said you did. So I'm sure we've got listeners taking note of that when you grow, you've got to value your brand.
Right.
But you've got to make sure that your brand allows the flexibility to be successful in the different locales that you choose. Glad you're doing so well. What a big jump. Miami to Texas, getting into Houston, 4 units within 2 years, and you just got on the list with a best burger. I think that's a significant accomplishment. Good
Oh
job.
yeah. Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Adrian, do you remember any crazy stories about the menu when we first opened that you'd share? I'm trying to remember besides the hot sauce and
I mean, honestly, like even though the spending characteristics of the consumer between Miami and Houston might be similar, the food, the flavor palette is completely different. So I mean, you look at the product mix, right? And items that don't sell in Miami are through the roof in Texas. If we put anything spicy on the menu, that's another thing. He said that we had to kind of localize some certain items. Like we tried doing LTOs like that were spicy. Miami doesn't respond to spice, but Texas loves it. Right. So it does amazing in Texas. And they're like, keep it on the menu. And Miami's like, why are you doing this? So
There you
it,
go. Limited time offers that get to be adjusted regionally rather than, one corporate stamp and everybody's got to do it. So that's a smart lesson.
yeah, you end up basically having like a core menu that you have for your entire brand, and then you just have regional items that you have for each location or for each
Very
market
smart.
to make sure
Very
that
smart.
you're paying attention to that local market.
Well, listen, we're going to have to wrap up soon, but what I just do want to do here is do quick little crystal ball action that each of you could take a look back at. Give yourself the next 3 to 5 years. Where's Pincho's? What could we be expecting out of Pincho in the next, say, 3 to 5 years as a concept, territories, whatever? How do you see it growing?
Oh man, that is a great question. We're actually going through these conversations now.
Yeah.
3 to 5 years, I think we'll, 25 units, hopefully, I think in the next 3 to 5 years, getting to 20 to 25 company-owned stores and possibly restarting franchising at some point now that we're stronger and have an incredible equity partner behind us. Because early on when we did it, we were young kids that no one would take seriously. Today, it's very different. The really great franchisees want to know who's behind the brand. How's this leadership team? Do they know what they're doing? How successful are they? So I think 10 years ago, it was a very different story than today.
I bet you're right.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Yeah. Today, I can hold a really decent conversation with a great executive, somebody that's an amazing operator. Back then, we were still learning a lot. So I think I don't know if Adrian, what are your thoughts, but I think that's sort of the path for us forward.
Definitely.
Maybe open in Brazil and South America, Mexico. This
Well,
is a brand that can travel to all of.
Okay, now that's an opening I don't want to miss.
Yeah, there you go.
international is always in my dream, but I definitely think we want to continue to expand northward in Florida. Continue to maintain our grasp in Houston, possibly grow a little bit more within the Houston market, and then try out some other markets up the southeastern United States, maybe a little bit further north.
Okay. Sounds great. Sounds wonderful. We have had some tremendous points here. I hope all the listeners got them. Tremendous points on what you learn when you start, and then how you get smarter when you develop your systems. Then once you know the concept's proven, how you grow smarter. I love the storyline about doing what you do well, but bringing in the partners that are not just funders, but also supporters of things that they also do well. So there's some tremendous tips on operations and growth that were shared today. Thank you, Otto. Thank you, Adrian. It's Pincho's, guys. If you're not in Houston or you're not in Miami, look them up because we can't go yet. But hold on. I get the feeling they might be coming to our neighborhood.
Yes, sir.
Hey, thank you, guys. Thank you so much. We wish you continued success. And for all you listeners, go make it a great shift. I hope you have a great shift today and tomorrow. And let's cross paths on another corner booth real soon. Thanks.
Thank you for joining us on the Corner Booth. We'll be back next Tuesday with more inspiration, insights, and industry best practices to help you engage your team, delight your guests, and grow your business.